5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Start. Communal terrorism is a form of violence that stems from deep-rooted divisions within a society based on identity markers such as ethnicity, sect, culture, or tradition. It arises when individuals or groups resort to terror tactics to assert dominance, retaliate against perceived threats, or enforce ideological conformity within or across community lines. Unlike terrorism that targets political structures or national governance, communal terrorism is often more intimate, erupting within neighborhoods, marketplaces, and local institutions, turning shared spaces into battlegrounds. This form of violence is particularly dangerous because it tears at the social fabric, eroding trust, destabilizing communities, and perpetuating cycles of fear and vengeance. At its core, communal terrorism is not born in a vacuum. It is typically the product of long-standing grievances, historical conflicts, and manipulated narratives that pit one group against another. These narratives are often cultivated over years or even generations, passed down through stories of injustice, marginalization, or victimhood. They are sometimes amplified by misinformation, propaganda, and inflammatory rhetoric, leading individuals to perceive others not as neighbors or fellow citizens, but as existential threats. When such sentiments are weaponized, they can manifest in riots, targeted killings, arson, and other acts of coordinated violence designed to terrorize a particular community. The psychological underpinnings of communal terrorism are complex. This mindset facilitates justification for acts that would otherwise be morally reprehensible. Once the moral compass is compromised, ordinary individuals may find themselves complicit in acts of extraordinary cruelty. These violent outbreaks often begin with a triggering incident such as a rumor, a disputed event, or a provocative act which then serves as a spark in a volatile environment. What follows is rarely spontaneous. In many cases, the violence is systematically orchestrated, with weapons, resources, and leadership emerging from shadowy corners that benefit from social division. Communal terrorism also leverages economic and political tensions. Areas with significant disparity in wealth, education, or access to justice are particularly vulnerable. In such environments, communal identity becomes a tool for mobilization, a rallying point to demand rights or resist change. Political opportunism often exacerbates the problem. When power is tied to identity politics, leaders may exploit communal divisions to secure votes, distract from governance failures, or suppress dissent. In doing so, they provide not only legitimacy, but also logistical support directly or indirectly to groups that promote terror under the guise of protecting cultural or sectarian values. One of the defining features of communal terrorism is its cyclical nature. Victims of one episode often become perpetrators in the next. Collective memory of past violence fuels a desire for revenge, creating a dangerous continuum of retaliation. Children grow up in environments steeped in mistrust, learning to view their neighbors as threats rather than as allies. Education systems, media outlets, and even religious or cultural institutions may unconsciously or deliberately reinforce these divides. Over time, this creates hardened identities, less susceptible to reconciliation and more prone to radicalization. The impact of communal terrorism extends beyond physical destruction. Its psychological and emotional toll is profound. Survivors of such violence often suffer from trauma, displacement, and loss of livelihood. Women and children, in particular, bear disproportionate burdens, facing violence, exploitation, and long-term instability. Social cohesion suffers as communities retreat into insular structures for safety, weakening the pluralistic fabric of society. Trust in law enforcement and justice systems erodes, especially when state machinery is seen as biased or complicit. This erosion of trust further alienates affected groups, pushing some toward extremist ideologies or parallel systems of justice. Addressing communal terrorism requires a multifaceted approach. Law and order must be maintained with impartiality and efficiency, ensuring that perpetrators are held accountable regardless of their affiliations. Investigations into incidents of communal violence must be transparent, timely, and thorough to prevent the perception of bias. At the same time, long-term strategies must focus on prevention through education, dialogue, and community building. Promoting critical thinking, empathy, and intergroup understanding from a young age is crucial in dismantling the mental barriers that fuel hatred. Media and communication platforms also play a vital role. Responsible journalism can help de-escalate tensions by verifying facts, avoiding sensationalism, and offering diverse perspectives. Social media, while often a vector for misinformation, can also be harnessed to promote peace and counter hate speech. However, this requires active engagement from both civil society and regulatory frameworks that respect freedom of expression while curbing incitement to violence. Civil society organizations are instrumental in bridging divides. Grassroots movements, peace committees, interfaith dialogues, and cultural exchanges can foster shared experiences and mutual respect. These initiatives must be inclusive, consistent, and adequately supported to make a lasting impact. When communities come together to mourn the loss, rebuild homes, or protect each other during crisis, they sow the seeds of resilience and unity. Internationally, lessons can be drawn from societies that have successfully navigated communal tensions. Truth and reconciliation processes, community policing models, and inclusive development policies offer valuable templates. However, each context is unique, and solutions must be locally rooted. Efforts must also guard against over-securitization, which risks alienating communities and further entrenching the very divides that fuel terrorism. At a personal level, combating communal terrorism begins with self-awareness and individual responsibility. Challenging stereotypes, engaging with diverse perspectives, and standing up against injustice within one's circle can create ripple effects. Courageous acts of solidarity, where individuals protect those from different backgrounds during times of crisis, stand as testaments to the human capacity for compassion over hatred. In conclusion, communal terrorism is one of the gravest threats to internal peace and democratic coexistence. It seeks to fracture society from within, replacing harmony with hostility and unity with suspicion. Confronting this menace requires not only strong institutions, but also a conscious cultural shift toward empathy, justice, and shared humanity. A society resilient to communal terrorism is not one without difference, but one where difference is celebrated, protected, and integrated into a common narrative of coexistence. Only then can true peace be sustained, and the shadow of communal violence be lifted from the collective future. Stop.